don't scratch it in public.
Yeah. So, again, we're going kind of loosey-goosey today. It's informal. Let's try to hear some comments because you guys have come a long way. We're to people's house. Typically, in a subcommittee, we don't even take public testimony, but we're going a little bit more liberal today. So, okay, good. Thank you.
I want to sort of emphasize and reiterate some things that have already been said, so it shouldn't take me long. Ian called it objective. The difference is whenever you're having a conversation with someone, it's being recorded. It's in my mind. It's in my recollection. I might be writing it down if I'm on the phone with Mark as my representative, for instance. I could be writing down what he's saying, and I could quote him later and say, I was on the phone with Mark Warden, and he said this very blasphemous thing, and I could try to quote exactly what he said, but I'm just doing it to the best of my recollection. What modern technology is doing is making sure that that's an accurate recollection. And then if he has a beef with that, if he says, no, if he sees my recording and says, that you edited out something that I said, he can record all of his conversations on his side and release the full recording to protect himself if he wants. In a one-party state, if we had a one-party rule that if you're a party to the conversation, you are recording the conversation. The question is, are you recording it accurately and objectively, like Ian said? And modern technology should be a way of us protecting ourselves and saying, Mark said Dale misquoted me, and he could have a recording of that phone call to have evidence that I misquoted him, and I may have tried to claim that he made a racist remark, and he could play verbatim that conversation back to protect himself and his own reputation, to say that I misquoted him and I said it wrongly. Modern technology, if we use it right, can be a tool to protect ourselves and our rights. And again, and in a one-party rule, we could both be recording the conversation and getting an accurate, objective representation of exactly what was said. And in the case, for instance, when you talked about the Constitution being written and how important it was that they had privacy in that building, I bet you everyone in that room vetted every other person in that room to some extent, because there's trust there. Yep. Every one of them knows what's going on in that room, and any one of them could go out and tell other people what happened inside that room. So they had an agreement with them, between each other, that this was going to be a private conversation until they completed that document. And in the case of when she says she has confidential information, and she's a public, she works in a public capacity for her customers who expect privacy from her in that capacity. She has a responsibility to them in that capacity to protect their privacy, but they have no obligation to her. She's a public official, and they should be able to record that. She should have no expectation. If she records the conversation, she's violating what she agreed to in her public capacity. But there's again, holding her accountable as a servant to the public is something that is an important right to have for the sake of accountability. So these cases, that's the whole point of a one-party rule. That the Constitution being written in that building, they closed all the doors. They didn't let anyone in. They probably shuttered everything, all the windows, and they vetted each other because they only had an agreement with each other not to share that conversation outside of that. The conversation was being recorded. People were taking notes. People were memorizing things. Modern technology just means it's going to be a more accurate recording.
Thank you, Dale. And the sponsor had a point on that?
Are you suggesting then that a one-party rule provides more privacy protections than a two-party rule does to the individual?
Yes. It provides better protection, period, in the sense that if the conversation is being recorded regardless. It just might be an inaccurate recording. It might be my memory. It might be me taking notes of what you said. And I could come out and say that you told me this in a conversation. I could be telling the truth, but you could deny that and say, no, he lied about that, or he didn't represent it accurately, or my memory could just be bad. But if I'm recording the conversation, I have an accurate, more objective recording of the facts of what we said. And if I were to misstate what you said, for instance, the difference if I play back what you said in your own voice, that's an accurate representation. And if you're concerned that I'm going to misquote you, you can record your phone calls too. And for instance, if I tried to edit out a portion of what you said to make it sound out of context and make it inaccurate, you could correct that by this is the actual recording unedited, and show how I had misrepresented you. So it would protect your rights and your reputation.
So if I was a public official or even a private official or a business official, with the one-party rule, there would be a greater degree of protection both to the individual and to the other entity as well.
Right, like Ian mentioned, the hidden cameras that catch business owners engaged in really shifty practices. The business owner should be able to have their own cameras on the scene too, and maybe they show something that
Most
in
businesses
context,
have cameras.
yeah, and mostly do.
Well-
In full context, it might totally change the interpretation of
Carla,
those
did you
events.
want,
Yeah,
I
I
think she wanted to
can
speak to the
answer
point.
that question.